Hi there, this is Shauna from the Foil Fox. I am so glad you're here today. I am showing off this new stamp from Pinkfresh Studios. It's called Wonderful in Every Way, and it also has these wonderful sentiments that go with them, and it is a fabulous floral set. It has a matching die set that cuts out the flowers, plus a couple of sentiments. It does have a stencil. I didn't use it today, but I wanted to show this off just so that if you are a stencil lover, that is also available. And then we have the stained glass cover plate, has a hot foil plate, and it has its own stencil. And I wanted to show off all of these pieces that all go together so that you can use them in the way that you like to do best. Now I have a white card base here that is an A2. I have some hot press watercolor paper and some white cardstock. I am going to be using mulberry later on, which is a purple, and you'll see that later. But for right now, I have just a bit of that white of the hot press watercolor paper in my stamp positioner. I have mounted the floral stamp. I have a bunch of distress inks. I have my spritzer. And I'm going to start out with pink raspberry. Here are all the colors up here. I'm using pink raspberry, a little bit of the wild honey. I love adding a little bit of yellow. Some seedless preserve for a little bit of darkening. Later for the centers, I'll be using the villainous potion. And then for the green leaves, I'll start out with using crushed olive over all of it, and then peeled paint and forest moss for a little bit of the shadowing. So if you have followed my videos before, you know that I like to combine colors like this. You can see I spritzed that about 4 times. It got really juicy. We'll just dab off just a tiny bit of this. Not too worried about it being all blurry. That actually means that we have a lot of ink that we can pull from that outline. And that's all I'm doing. I have my paintbrush and a little bit of water, and I'm just pulling in some of that ink from the edges. I'm going to do that all over, and then we're going to re-ink these areas again. And I'll use a little bit of forest moss here, especially at the bottom of the leaves. And some of the wild honey will go to the picked raspberry and the seedless preserve. We want to add a little bit of darkness to this outline. And I'm using a stamp press there. That is a Pinkfresh stamp press, and I will put it in the supply list, which is down below. Well, a link is. And I really love that press. I didn't think that I would, but I just love it. And so if you don't have one, that's a wonderful thing to have in your bevy of tools to use for your projects. Now I'm adding a little bit more green. This is peeled paint, and I'm just adding it to add more shadow and depth to the leaves. I'll also add some of the forest moss to make it even a little bit darker. You know, you can fiddle with this forever, which I have a tendency to do, but I won't bore you so much with that. I'm going to dry this just a little bit because I want to stamp it one more time with these colors so that I can just crispen up the definition of all the lines of this stamp. And you can see I did the leaves there. Look at the difference that makes. And now we'll go on to the flower. I'm going to add that villainous potion now right in the center. And I don't worry too much about where it lands because I know that these colors all are complementary and they'll work nicely together. Now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to move it because I'm going to do another one of these. And we're just going to kind of speed through this process because we already saw all how it was done, but this will give you a review. And you'll just see a sped up version of it. Using all the same colors of picked raspberry, the seedless preserve, the wild honey, Love the yellow in it. And then for the leaves, that's the crushed olive peeled paint and a little bit of forest moss. I'm just coloring this, and it's good to have the flower right above it because these are going to work together, so I want them to be real complementary, and this will give me a chance to make sure they will be a little bit different because I'm just making another one, and each one always is just a little bit different, isn't it? Each time you paint them. And I like that because our flowers are different in nature too. So I think that works out. Just color in these greens, and then we'll do the same thing as crisp up these lines to the flower and leaves. I'll use that center, that villainous potion for the center. Really like how that gives depth and really gives definition to that beautiful center. Just touch it up here and there. Like I say, I could fiddle with this forever. But since we don't want the video to go on forever, we'll just kind of stop at where I think works. Now, I waited till those were really, really, really dry. And then I cut them out. That was really speedy. I'm sorry about that. Now, this is that mulberry paper I was talking about. I am spritzing it with water. I have my rubber mat and 4 sheets of just scrap cardstock. I'm using it as a shin, and I ran it through my die cutting machine. And it doesn't cut through it, but with those 4 sheets of cardstock, it really made a nice impression. Now I cut out a white panel using the same stained glass plate, and I'm pushing out all of the negatives areas, and we're just going to push those all out, and it comes out so cleanly, and it cuts beautifully. And I just love this stained glass panel. I just think it gives a really nice backdrop. Now I'm going to do something kind of a little bit different. I have that panel there, but I'm going to use some saltwater taffy, some wild honey, picked raspberry, and a little bit of dusty concord. You could skip the dusty concord if you want to. And these are just re-inkers. And I am just, you can see, I'm just using a little bit of each of these and just kind of just dragging my brush across, leaving a lot of white space. And I just thought I would do something a little bit different, and this is what I chose to do. And this is going to go on top of my mulberry panel. Now I need a sentiment. You can see I'm gathering up all of my pieces, and these do have some wonderful sentiments. And this one I'm going to make sure I really use a lot of anti-static powder, because I don't want that white embossing powder to stick where I don't want it to. I'm using a Versamark ink, and I'm really ink these up really well when I use Versamark ink, and I'm using the press there too. This is Wow Bright White embossing powder, and I'm just going to heat set it, and then I'm going to cut it out using the matching die. So it cuts out this really nice, clean. I love when I have cutouts for the sentiments. And now let's put it together because we have all the pieces. So I have this wonderful embossed panel that we did. And then I'm going to stick it right on the front of my mulberry A2 card base. Then I'm going to add this stained glass panel. And you're going to see, I'm going to put some glue dotted around here. And then when I put it on top of my front of my card base, you're going to see that there's 2 ways to put it on. I can put it this way where it matches perfectly, or you can switch it around where a little bit more of that embossed detail shows. I'm going to use it that way because I like to see a little bit more of that detail. Maybe it's hard for you to see that, but if you give it a try, you'll see what I mean. I have some foam on the back of my flowers, and I'm just arranging these so I have this full flower, this full front just covered with flowers, and then my sentiment. You can see I have some hanging over, and the best way to do that is to stick it down and then turn it on the back and trim everything back. Then you see I have the sentiment there. It is all done. But now we're going to rush, and we're going to do another one. This one's going to be using the same materials. The only difference is for the inks, I am going to be adding in a little bit of abandoned coral. And so I've put these inks back up here for you again. You'll see I use exactly the same procedure. We're rushing through this, so remember I'm using all the same greens, and I'm gonna just make this one a little bit more corally with more yellow in it. So I'm gonna go much heavier with the wild honey. I'm just gonna add these different colors in. I'm not sure if I'm going to use the villainous potion though. I'll see if I need it when I get down to wanting a little bit more definition. But you can see this one's a lot more corally, like I said, and I'm really making the yellows much more pronounced. I love the wild honey because it gives you kind of that orangey yellow. It's a beautiful, beautiful color. We'll add in the greens, same way as before, adding in some of the peeled paint and the forest moss. Just adding some shadowing here, shading. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to add some definition the same way as I did before by stamping, drying it first, just a little, just to get a lot of the moisture off, so that when I stamp these in the little bit darker colors, which is the seedless preserve and the picked raspberry and the wild honey primarily, that it will not blur out. It will give you a really crisp outline. Now for the center, I decided to use VersaFine Black Onyx ink for this, and just to give it a really dark. Now I made another one off camera so I could have two of these for this project, because you know I used two before. Now you'll see what I did here. I have a white card base that I did exactly the same thing as I did with the purple one, where I embossed it using my rubber mat and those 4 shims of cardstock. And now I'm putting some double stick tape on here because we're going to stick it onto my A2 card base. Just exactly the same thing as before. I have a little bit different sentiments. It's a sentiment that's also included in the stamp set, and I stamped it with the VersaFine Black Onyx ink. I love it. It is very crisp. I have some foam on the back of these flowers, and I'm going to arrange this one just a little bit differently, and we'll just see if we can't get that all straight. And then, just like before, I'm trimming off a whole lot. It's so much easier when you turn it over this way to the back, because you get it very clean that way. And there it is, all complete. And I'm going to bring in the purple one that we did as well. Now here, I'm going to give you a closer look at the one that we just finished, and you can see what you think of this one and kind of judge for yourself which one that you like the best, because we're going to move on to showing you some close-ups of the purple one as well that we had started in the very beginning. So you can let me know. Please let me know. I love to hear what everybody thinks. I always choose my favorite ahead of time, but I don't want to say anything until everybody has had a chance to weigh in on what is their favorite. But this one has the darker background. It has the sentiment with the matching mulberry cardstock, and the white embossing powder, and it just has the little bit more of a contrast and drama to it. So you can decide what works for you. This is just a review. I use the Pinkfresh Studio, wonderful in every way it's called. Remember, it has the die, the stamp, and the stencil, and the stained glass, which has a die, hot foil, and a stencil, and assorted distressings. But all the link for all of these supplies is down below, so you can just click that and you will see them all. I want to thank you so much for being with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. We would love to have you join us for the next adventure. So in fact, we'll end it here, and I hope to see you again. Bye.